Welcome to Game Club, the podcast that's like a book club but for video games. I'm Dan, the biggest, baddest podcaster on Block G.
I'm Catherine, the hapless minimum security prisoner.
And I'm Charles, unnecessarily cruel prison guard.
Welcome to episode 12. This week we played Prison Architect. Catherine, do you want to give us a brief overview of what Prison Architect is?
So Prison Architect is a top-down kind of resource management game. You have to build and run your own private prison. I assume set in the US because of various kind of queues, but you know, it's pretty non-specific. You have little prisoners that run around, you control the guards, you hire staff, and of course you stop them from escaping, which is kind of the main goal of the game, along with sometimes killing them.
And you abuse their human rights. That's the important one. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, definitely. It's published by Introversion Software. It was originally released on the 6th of October 2015. However, it did have a very, very long alpha that kind of led the charge of being one of the first games to have that kind of alpha where it took feedback from the players.
And I want to give a very special welcome back to Catherine. You're back. We missed you last week.
Yay! Yes. No, I'm very happy to be back. And, you know, very happy that we chose this game as it's addicted me. So I have a lot to say.
Excellent. Well, we'll get to your thoughts and feelings on Prison Architect after we get through our Nerd Week. Charles, you're up first. What'd you do this week in your Nerd Week?
I did so much stuff. There was a lot of nerding going on. A big one for me is that I'm part of Wargaming Association, where I help organise tournaments. Now, chiefly we've done this in Queensland, in Brisbane and Townsville, but we're now expanding south. So one of the guys who has a lot of the terrain is moving south. He's moving to Wagga, so convenient. So I'm going to have access to a lot of that.
So it literally has the terrain.
Yes, the terrain. The terrain's the biggie. So, yeah. But I've also reached out to a local Melbourne terrain company called Knights of Dice, which do, I think, probably the best MDF terrain in Australia, which is super exciting. Their stuff is amazing and really unique. And certainly if anyone listening is interested in terrain, they should check out Knights of Dice. Anyway, I reached out to them. And they've supported us in the past because we raise money for Soldier On. So they got on board and gave us a bunch of stuff for our charity raffles that we run. Anyway, I reached out to them and they've provided a couple of free bundles of terrain worth about $500 to help get me started.
Nice.
Starting up a Melbourne cell of Wargaming. So I'm going to start it out of the garage to start with, and then expand. I'm going to hit up a local shop for gaming space and just crack on and build some tables. It's really exciting.
Nice. Yeah. And have you told Emma about the garage?
Yeah. So I brought up the garage thing, and she's like, no. And I'm like, yeah, but have you considered your garage being a full gaming man den? Still not that impressed. So, I'm working on it.
Okay.
I think I've come to a compromise. I think it's because she wants to use it to park her car, which seems unreasonable.
Fair as a garage.
Right?
See the logic.
Madness. So I think the compromise will be tables, right? Stick with me, that withdraw up to the walls that I can then flick down using hinges.
God.
And then I can flick them up and she can park her car, or I can flick them down when the car's not in there and my car will just stay out on the street.
See, I know how this is going to end.
Yep.
This is going to end. She gets home. It's been a long day. And there's just this tiny, help, just this tiny little voice. And she looks over and you've trapped yourself in one of the tables. The hinge is flicked up. It's caught you with it. And you've been there for hours. That's what I see happening very clearly.
No, see, I see Emma driving home, opening the garage door, and then the tables being down, and
just
her
driving through.
What the hell, Charles? And you go, well, we had to call it short in the last game. Like this, we're in the middle of a battle. We can't disassemble the area.
Yep.
And her just not giving a fuck and flooring it.
Yeah.
Both of those are likely scenarios.
Either of them. Yeah.
Either way, she goes away for 2 weeks soon. So joke's on her. I'm just going to do whatever I want, and we'll see what happens when she comes back. So you're going to be a party to this, Catherine.
Listen to the podcast.
No, she doesn't. She's never listened. She hates everything I do. So, joke's on her.
Brilliant.
Yep. So, Catherine, you're going to help. You're going to be in charge of the circular saw.
Oh my god. Okay,
Yeah.
well this is your own fault for a lot of reasons.
So that's that. So that's really exciting. Other stuff I've been doing, I got a new mobile phone, finally. My camera didn't work on my last one for about 6 months. So I got the S8, which is a very nice phone. And of course, it also comes with, if you paid a little bit extra, the Samsung Gear, the really simple VR headset. So I've been playing around with that, and I'm finally part of the VR community, if not the really sad one for posers. But you know what? That's all right.
I did notice you friended me on Oculus, and that's how I knew you had a VR thing finally.
That's how it goes down. The friending, it gives away everything. So I've been playing a few little VR games on that. My board game development goes swimmingly. I've pretty much redesigned the whole board game after a bunch of playtesting. Just small things, but I think things that really improve the gameplay. So I'm printing that out soon, and I've got little sleeves for it all, and it's going to be super professional. So that's very exciting, and you two are going to be playing that in no time.
Brilliant.
It's good. It's really good, Gavin.
Cool.
It's good.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I had my 30th birthday, so I got some cool nerd presents for that. The most exciting of which, of course, was the nerd group present that Catherine organised, which is a Star Wars photo shoot with me dressed as Darth Vader in a full Darth Vader costume, and Izzy, my daughter, dressed as Leia, and it's going to be the most adorable thing that's happened ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's amazing and exciting, and I'll probably do that in October. And lastly was I did a bit of a Star Wars Destiny card game trade, and I got a couple of sweet Han Solos cheap. Does that impress you, Catherine?
So you screwed some child out of their fancy cards.
Yeah, he was 8, and I'm like, give them to me or a bit. No, that's not what happened.
No. You don't threaten to beat them up. You just battle them, cheat, and then you say, "Oh, didn't you know the rules are I get your cards if you lose?"
Yeah, something about a white dragon was involved. I don't know. Got pretty deep. That's every episode of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
Get on board,
I didn't get the reference. Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Fake nerd. I'm sorry, I've got a cough.
Yeah, it's pretty painful.
And that's my nerd week. So it was huge and hectic, and I've had a great time. Dan, tell us about your nerd week.
So my nerd week is not as exciting as all of that as Charles's. I had to babysit for my sister's kids, and by had to, I volunteered.
Is it ever truly volunteering?
4 kids. She has the same birthday as Charles, so this was my birthday present to her and my nieces and nephews. So my Emma and I went round to babysit for these 4 kids for the weekend. So
4.
Of course the best.
Wow, that's a lot of kids. That's very brave.
That's a lot of children.
Yeah, wow.
The 2 boys are pretty comfortable playing Xbox, and we brought the Wii U around, so it was fun to play those family games. And the sort of 2.5-year-old is competent enough to hold an iPad, so that works. You give her the Wii U, and she just mashes it, trying to pop all the bubbles or create platforms to maybe help her brothers. In real terms, though, ends up blocking them and killing them. So it was a really good fun time. Played D&D over there as well. Tried to get the boys involved, but they just wanted to play Destiny and Yoshi and Super Mario. Really not interested in playing board games that require reading and or maths.
No one's surprised. That's because D&D's boring, Dan.
Don't break his heart, Charles. Don't break his heart.
And apart from that, been getting back into Guild Wars 2, as there's a new expansion coming out soon, and it's a bit of a fun game to play while you do something when we're not playing Prison Architect. Yeah.
Oh.
Catherine, I would love to hear what you have a whole month of Word Nerd Weekend.
I do. I was just looking through my diary because apparently I forget things as soon as they happen. So I went to... I've had lots of work on. I flew to Canberra for a friend's 30th birthday, so it's just 30th season. I also then flew to Sydney for some awards this weekend. I wasn't nominated, but it was a really nice night.
Did you get up when they called out awards and be like, I should have won this award. It was me. I was better than all of this.
No, I was just quietly drinking and gossiping.
Okay,
and sending Snapchats.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, incorrectly hashtagging.
Yes, apparently. Humiliating myself with the hashtags. So I went to a VR session at MIFF, which was really interesting. I think it actually used your phone, Charles. So it had it had the little full headsets and headphones.
Did they steal my phone while I wasn't paying attention?
Yeah, I'm really curious about your work.
Yes, they did. They had your model of phone. They have set up for
good.
kind of big VR room. Yeah, you really told me.
Yes.
Yeah, they were just short films. It was interesting because obviously most of my VR experience has been with games, which are interactive by their very nature and have a very different format. And these were just short films that kind of took different attitudes to it. Like some of them you were on rails and you were moving around. Some of them you were in one spot, you'd look around, then you would teleport and be in another spot. Some were live action, some were generated. So it was just, it was really interesting to see where the field was going. And to be honest, most of them were pretty basic. I liked one or two, but a lot were just, look at this cool technology. But I think, a few years from now, we'll be seeing some really interesting narratives, but everyone's just kind of playing with the tech at the moment. I also went to a thing called Deep Space Puzzle Room, which is based in Melbourne. I thought it was actually a VR experience, but it was closer to like an escape room. It was a little bit different. You were basically on a spaceship. I did it with 3 friends.
Is this the one Josh talked about last week?
Yeah. So
Okay,
it'd be the same one.
Yeah.
So
what was your thoughts? Because Josh is obviously an escape room expert.
Artist, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I think it was frustrating that there was some options that apparently we could have chosen that we just kind of skipped over.
Right.
Also, the guy claimed that we weren't one of the fastest to do it, and I doubt that very much.
He lied to you.
Well, I don't think he timed it, and it's like that was a group of deeply competitive people.
Yeah, it's like sex, right? If it wasn't the best, you still want him to tell you you're the best. Come on.
Exactly.
And
to be the fastest. Yeah.
Correct. I want to achieve those 2 things at once.
Yeah.
We established on last week's episode that there should be a badge system that you get, and so then you can challenge the Elite Four of escape rooms. Do you think you guys would have a contention to be the Elite Four of escape rooms?
They would be. I am not sure about me.
Okay, so you're a hanger-oner, bringing the team down is what you're saying.
Yeah, basically. Well, no, I am more chaotic neutral in my choices. It's my big problem.
Are they the superstar team and you're the kid who's there as a bit of a birthday present, or because they've been in hospital lately and they need a bit of a cheer up?
Not so much that. I'm more the team member where they were in a different room working on a puzzle and I opened something because I was curious, and then the computer was like, don't open that 50 times while I struggled to put it back on.
Nice.
So that's more of my strategy. As I said, I'm chaotic neutral.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed it. It was expensive. I would still recommend it. I thought it was really fun. I just thought it was wearing a VR headset, so it was very confusing for the first 10 minutes.
Maybe where's my VR headset? And they're like, there's no VR headset. 5 minutes later, but where's my VR headset?
I want one.
Yeah, that's obviously confusing.
Yeah. So that was my nerd week.
Let's move on to the gaming news for the week.
Etc.
News.
Yes, news. Josh did it last week and he did it really well. And in that instance, I'm like, I like him better than Catherine, but that's fine.
Just that one?
Yep. Just that one
part.
instant. Yep, just that part. The rest, you're all right, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm going to kick off some gaming news. You may have heard about it. Gamescom, not to be confused with GameCon.
You mean Gencon?
Gencon, or whatever it is, Charles. Just going to talk about later. Big news coming out of Gamescom. Kind of, look, Age of Empires 4. A lot of people have a lot of really nice feelings about the Age of Empires franchise. I'm one of them. But did we need a number 4?
Yes.
That's the
Next
answer.
Question.
Did you play 3 much at all?
Nope.
If at all?
No.
See, I feel like all this nostalgia comes from Age of Empires 2. 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yep. So I want them to remake Age of Empires 2 better for a modern audience.
Well, they also announced the definitive edition, which is I think some sort of HD remake of 1, 2, and 3, and then announced 4, but then also didn't show any gameplay of 4.
Yeah, no, it's
but
just a little
people are
cinematic
losing their
thing.
minds on the internet.
Yeah, people need something to lose their minds over, and it's sure as shit not going to be Farming Simulator on the Switch, which you will soon get to. So why not Age of Empires 4?
Yeah, okay. So if you're excited about Age of Empires 4, good on you, I suppose. Let us know. Tweet at me and tell me why I should be excited. I think the RTS genre has come in leaps and bounds, and not really sure if Age of Empires is going to be able to hold up today. Do Microsoft make good games anymore?
Yeah, no, they don't. And the interesting thing about...
They kind of semi-fund good games, I guess. Like, they have their indie incubators and things.
Yeah, sure. The RTS genre has kind of gotten a bit stale. So Company of Heroes, I think, was the last really good RTS game. And then, of course, Company of Heroes 2, whatever. There is a new exciting one coming out there. I can't think of the name, but it's kind of... They've taken the world of...
Clearly, you're very excited.
Very excited. The world of Scythe, it kind of looks like they've picked this as a board game set in kind of alternate World War I with big machine things. They've kind of lifted that, and whether they've actually used their IP or they've just stolen it, either way, I don't mind. And they're making a bit of an RTS out of that, which looks really interesting. But that's the only RTS game that I've seen in recent years that has even slightly interested me.
Right.
The only other bit of Gamescom news that I found remotely interesting was seeing pictures of Angela Merkel play Minecraft and Farming Simulator. For those of you who don't know, she's the Prime Minister, I want to say, of Germany.
Oh, President.
Yeah, right.
I'm not sure.
President,
Or Chancellor. I don't know.
I think maybe she is the Chancellor. Yeah,
No,
this is
no,
not the right
not the Chancellor.
podcast. Yeah.
It was just hilarious seeing essentially the head of state playing video games on the gaming floor, especially Farming Simulator, which is super popular in Europe, but I just can't get behind any of those truck simulators or anything like that.
Their lives must be so dull. But...
She is the Chancellor of Germany.
Is she?
So, yeah.
They kept that, the whole Chancellor thing? Good for them.
That it amuses me, but also I can see a lot of high-level politicians being very good at certain kinds of video games, like resource management games or building games. Like, a certain type of person has gone into politics and slightly obsessive, slightly like a policy wonk. Like, I can see some of them being very particular kinds of gamers.
I feel like they're too busy talking to each other about how great they are, and they don't have time for games.
No, I'm not saying that they do have time for games. It's more like that if they had the chance, they would actually enjoy certain ones, even if they're not traditional gamers. That's more my... I'm not saying they all secretly play Minecraft in their offices.
Well,
Busted.
they might.
They've got to do something, right? And apparently it's not leading the country, so...
Maybe we'll get a politician simulator from those same guys, and it'll just be you sitting
Lying.
in a chair, answering emails,
Playing
crafting
Minecraft. Yep.
PR, playing Minecraft within your office.
Yep.
Be like Job Simulator, but for politicians.
I'd reckon there's a fun games in a political simulator, like, you know, like journalists asking questions, and you have all these options that all don't answer the question. And
They do exist. Yeah, they do exist. It's a game called Democracy, but I feel like it doesn't take the cynicism
right.
far enough, but it could.
Brilliant. All right, Catherine, what's your exciting news?
So my exciting news is about reports coming out that the Skyrim VR port is an absolute dumpster fire of a game. And that was the phrase the article used. Yeah.
Yep.
It's so visual, you know, like you just
That's
get
a
the
phrase
sense
I've been
of...
hearing more and more of, dumpster fire. It seems like a very popular phrase.
Yeah, it's very in the memes at the moment, you know. And yeah, so at this weekend's QuakeCon, Bethesda showed off its first attempt at porting Skyrim to VR, and it did not go well. Which I think, like, there's a couple of questions I have at this. Like, one is, you clearly know that your game isn't in good shape, and you want to dispel the rumors that it's not in good shape. Like, showing YouTubers this was never going to go well.
They must just sit in a room and then be like, okay, guys, our game's a piece of shit. Should we keep making it or should we scrap it? And then someone pipes up, how are we going to make the most money out of this? And then they all
I don't think it's so much that. I think it's honestly that they're like, okay, well, the mobs aren't quite working yet, but we think this is going well. And I think you just lose all perspective. And then someone that comes in from the outside that isn't part of your team and doesn't know all the background and can't see that, the next build will be better, just plays it and is like, what the fuck am I playing? Like,
Yep.
Yeah, also handing stuff to YouTubers. So they handed it to YouTube influencers or YouTube channels or something. Is that right? Like they gave him a demo copy?
One was a YouTuber called Super Bunny Hop, who's quite well known.
Yep.
And then there was a YouTuber called Dreamcast Guy.
See, I feel as well that a lot of the time YouTubers are going to go to the extreme, especially if something's wrong with the game, to point out those flaws and make it a massive deal. I haven't seen what this footage is like, and it could be actually super terrible.
Oh, it sounds pretty terrible, Dan.
Yeah, I just think it's a shitty marketing move.
Well, I think it's almost not the opposite, but yes, tear down videos do get a lot of views and get a lot of press, but these guys were chosen because they liked Skyrim and they wanted to talk about it. They were probably primed to be positive about it if anything. But it was interesting reading all the problems because a lot of them just read like problems that a lot of games being either made for VR or adapted to VR are having.
Yep.
Like, you move through the game via teleporter. And it's like, that's really jarring unless you're playing a very particular kind of game like Job Simulator or whatever. The idea of running through the wilderness, but you're like, little teleport is not how I want to be playing Skyrim or any other kind of open world game like that. I think they need an auto run like you used to have in WoW, where it's just, okay, any way I turn my head, I'm running, this happens, and it's just a little toggle on your controller.
I get that, but I think that is part of the problem why they don't use a running thing. It's not you pressing a button or having an auto run. It's the feeling of your eyes tell you you're running, but your body isn't.
It may be a motion sickness issue. Yeah.
I think it definitely is.
Yeah, and just combat being really hard. So the example that one of the reviewers used was in the normal game, if you were jumped by 10 bandits, in this you're jumped by 1, and they're really, really easy, but still really hard to kill because the controls are garbage. And yeah, I guess I found it, one, it's a shame, but also it is always fun to see a proper fail of a port or a demo. And I guess also, people would be going through their back catalogs looking at what they can put on VR. As well as people making original games, it's a lot of people, going, how can we monetize this old game or this new game of ours? And I guess this is just showing that still comes with certain risks.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see a mirror of what happened, and it continues to happen. Not so much anymore, but with the movie industry and 3D.
With 3D films.
Yeah, so a lot of people are like, oh, we film this film normally, but 3D is so hot right now, we're going to aftermarket 3D it. So it kind of looks dark and it looks weird, but we can say it's 3D and we can charge more. And we're going to say at the top of the show that it's called Real 3D because that's the name of the production house that adds the shitty 3D onto it.
Yeah.
Compared to stuff that's filmed in 3D like Avatar, for example. I think video games that are designed for VR will probably work a lot better than trying to tack on VR afterwards. Just as you said, to look at that back catalog and go, how can we squeeze this juice a little bit more? Yeah. And Skyrim's kind of the poster child for that. Everyone's making fun of it like, oh, it's going to appear on Switch. Oh, it's going to appear on VR. Oh, it's probably going to appear on those little Game & Watch things you get out of cereal packets. Skyrim is just done to death now. And Bethesda needs to let it go.
Special editions and HD editions, and the whole thing's a little embarrassing.
They've burnt their market.
Yeah, they need to let it go. Look, amazingly though, it's probably still the best freeform medieval style RPG out there. 6 years later or however long it's been out for.
Yeah, what about The Witcher?
Well, Witcher's not freeform though.
Yes, it is, Charles.
I disagree. In regards to the variety, I have. I've played Witcher 3 extensively. Right. In regards to the variety and kind of freedom that you have in your character building and who you can be as a character, I feel like you're a Witcher. That's
you are. Okay, I kind of get what you're saying. You're playing one person's thing.
Yep. So
sure.
there, eat your words. Point proven.
What's interesting is if we can go off on a tangent on Skyrim and RPGs for a moment, that we may cut. Emma said she didn't really enjoy Skyrim because you were the super special center of the universe character and everything hinged on you, whereas as Geralt, you are already a fully formed character, and it's like, oh, you're Geralt. The world continues on without you, but it's his story. Compared that to you are the chosen dragonborn, and nothing seems to happen without you. It's just a very different kind of perspective in those games.
Yep.
Yeah, and there is something in books or films or whatever, you always are the chosen one or the prophesized demon hunter or whatever, and the occasional like Morrowind, I feel like you weren't that special. You mostly ran around doing kind of pleb quests. Like it obviously escalated near the end, but I don't think it was as extreme as Skyrim.
You were still the prophesized one that would bring about the Neverie and all that kind of stuff.
You do, like absolutely you were, but I guess that you started and you felt a bit more like a shit kicker, whereas Skyrim you never quite felt like that in the same way.
They threw you straight into it.
Yeah.
But that's because people have less, like their attention spans these days are less. So really that's an issue of the customer. But then chicken and the egg scenario with computer games, something we don't really have time to get into.
Sure. Yeah, carry on.
Very good.
Save that for Game Club nights.
Yeah, that's it. So my news, following the trend of conventions, apparently it was the week for it. Gencon 50 happened in America, and Gencon is the biggest American board gaming convention, which is very exciting for me because it also involves miniature games. So a few things came out of it. We'll provide a link in the show notes. I won't go into the top 10 board games or anything like that, although it was good to see at number 4 of the link that I've put up that it was actually an Australian publisher that Dan has had the pleasure of interviewing before at PAX. So that's amazing.
Do you want to just say who they are? Do you give them a shout out?
Is it Rule and Make?
Rule and Make, yeah.
Yeah. So that's amazing for an Australian publisher to do so well.
Congrats.
And really put their foot forward at Gencon. So that's great. The two big things for me that came out of Gencon was that Rising Sun, the Japanese style Seamon, or Cool Mini, sounds like Seaman, Cool Mini or Not board game that I kickstarted recently. That was available for play, and all the reports were very praising, and everyone said that it played excellently. So that only increases the hype and excitement for me about that one. And the other big reveal was FFG revealing Legion.
Everything's got a Legion nowadays.
They're big on
like
Legions.
the show, like
No, so Legion is Star Wars Legion. FFG are releasing with the yawn.
I'm like, how fun.
You further, Catherine.
Great.
You'll play this,
it's like
and you'll
more
fucking
Destiny
love it.
News. How exciting!
So it's a Star Wars tabletop miniatures game in a proper miniatures game sense, i.e. you have units, you move them certain lengths, you fire at each other, and all that kind of stuff. So people have wanted this for ages.
So it's like X-Wing, but with units?
Correct. And on a larger tabletop. So people have wanted this forever. And it was kind of, I guess this has been in the making for a while. And it's finally going to be here in probably late 2017, more likely early 2018, depending on how long it takes to ship and stuff. But either way, I'm going to get deep into that. I've already got plans for tables. I'm building for it. So wait out to hear news about in my garage about Star Wars Legion.
I'm actually reminded, I didn't mention it before, but just you talking about Kickstarters, I backed a new game from the guy that did Alice Madness Returns.
Out of the Woods?
Yep, Out of the Woods.
Yeah,
the Fairy Tale card game and book. So I think it looks gorgeous.
Why would we both back it? Only one of us needs to.
Because you want to support the creator.
I want to support the creator, and I definitely want a copy of this. So
yeah, for sure, me too. It
looks fantastic, and it's right up my alley in terms of dark fables and all of that. So very excited, and I think it looks like a really cool little new project from him.
It does. It was getting a little tense near the end of that campaign, actually. I think it only just kind of met its funding goals near the end. I was a little worried it wouldn't, which would have been an absolute tragedy. But
also, there's a fascinating psychological thing where it's like you have, in terms of Kickstarters, there's the hump, like there's the first really keen fans, and then there's that kind of 2/3 point where most campaigns actually fail. And then, because once you get near the end, people are like, oh no, it's definitely happening, and there's less risk. And then as soon as you've hit your target and you're to stretch goals, your pledges go straight up because people know they're buying something, not hypothetically buying something. So there's definitely lots of challenges as a Kickstarter kind of games company, I guess, to tweak it exactly the right way in the amounts you ask for, while still being able to make a game.
It's weird that psychological hump is there for purchasers, though, because if the Kickstarter doesn't get funded, you get your money back. I know there are some websites that don't have that, but it's like, I don't want to even reserve my money if it's not going to.
Well, I think it's that, if I'm not going to get it and it might not happen, why am I putting my money down? Because you're absolutely right. Like, there's actually no risk for you, but like, I pressed buy on this because I really wanted to play this game and I was pretty sure it would get funded. If I thought it wouldn't, then why am I bothering to put my credit card details in only to get a refund 4 weeks later? Yeah. It's a weird psychological kind of barrier to entry, but it definitely is a thing.
Yeah. No, I get you. Cool. Excited to see what that's all about if you've both backed it.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's all from us for our news, and we should talk about the Game Club game of the week.
Seems like a thing we should do.